I do worry about not eating a good diet because I know I need to eat a good diet.
We're just brought up to eat junk food.
Oh, desserts are beautiful and so delicious and so scrumptious.
There's numerous places that I have that I like to hide chocolate.
I bought a half a gallon of Rocky Road yesterday, and I've finished half of it already, and I'll finish the other half when I get back home.
What's the secret for looking and feeling your best? It's simple. Cut the fat from your diet and exercise regularly. That will cut the fat from your body, improve your fitness, and reduce your risk of developing some diseases such as heart disease and cancer. In this program, you'll see that food can be full of flavor and good nutrients without being full of fat and cholesterol, so you can live life to the fullest. Study after study has shown that the typical American diet has wreaked havoc on our health, and that by making some moderate changes in our diets, we can improve our overall well-being and reduce the risk of developing some deadly diseases such as cancer and heart disease.
You can cut your chances for getting cancer by changing your diet. Reduce the fat, eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, and keep trim.
It's important to remember a couple of things. Having a high blood cholesterol is related to the way you eat. Having a high blood cholesterol causes coronary heart disease. Lowering your blood cholesterol prevents it. No one questions those basic tenets.
A greater appreciation of the hazards of fat and the benefits of fiber prompted a major push from nutritionists and physicians around the country to change the 35-year-old blueprint for a healthy diet. The basic 4 food groups were replaced by a triangle made up of 6 food groups designed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture called the Food Guide Pyramid. The best way to understand the pyramid is to think of how a pyramid is built, from the bottom up, with more desirable foods at the bottom and less desirable foods at the top. That means most of your daily diet should be made up of selections from the lower levels of the pyramid. Or look at it this way. Instead of thinking about foods you need to eat less of, think of the great abundance of foods you can now eat more of.
In terms of eating, what this means is eat a variety of foods, eat a variety of vegetables and fruits, a variety of sources of fiber, a variety of dietary fats. Don't divide the world into good foods and bad foods and oversimplify things.
At the base of the pyramid, the major component of a healthy, nutritious diet should be breads, cereals, rice, and pasta as a single food group. You should get 6 to 11 servings a day from this group. I've come to this local bakery to show you what grains will give you the biggest nutritional bang for your buck. Look for the ones that have the unrefined flours in them, the whole oats, wheat, and rice. Look at all these healthy choices we've got. Some 10 grain, little nut grain bread, and of course the old favorite, whole wheat. And now we're going to give you some recipes. Lynn Fisher is an expert in low cholesterol, low fat cooking, and she's going to show you another way to use grains in a healthy way, pasta.
Pasta has a lot going for it. People love it. It's fun to cook, and there are lots of easy low-fat pasta recipes, including this one, a simple pasta marinara. Now remember that pasta is a grain, and it's easy to build a meal around a grain. But first, what do we usually do with pasta? Let's be honest now. We like a bottled sauce, and many of them are delicious, but you know what? They're high in sodium and they're high in sugar. So how do we dilute a bottled sauce, give it more fiber, and have it better for us? Obviously, we add some fruit and vegetables to it. Now, what's fruit? Tomatoes are fruit. Bet you didn't know that. Vegetables, we would add maybe a whole onion chopped up, maybe some celery. Now, if you want a little natural sweetness, you can add a carrot that's chopped and some fresh garlic. And what really makes a bottled sauce good, a little bit of fresh basil, like this. This is what it looks like. You chop it up, and I'm one of those people that I love the dried oregano. I don't like the fresh, so you'd put some of that in there too. And you'd put that on top of your pasta. But let's say you want to make one from scratch. That is really so simple. Almost the same thing. We take 1 onion If it were me, I'd take 2. And what do we have in here? This is just water. You don't need any fat or oil. This is about 1/4 of an inch of water. We saute in water. So you take an onion and you chop it up and you put it in your water. And remember, you can chop these vegetables all at once if you want to, not separately like I've done it. And you take some celery. This is 1 stalk of celery. This is 1 carrot chopped, and some garlic. Whoa! And this is 1 tablespoon of garlic, and that's minced garlic. And if you like mushrooms, this is about 4 mushrooms to put in here. And again, of course, our beautiful basil that we've chopped up, and that's about 3 leaves that we've chopped, and about 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. You want twice as much of the fresh basil as you do the oregano. Now for tomatoes, this is about 4 tomatoes, and you can add, if you want to, some canned chopped tomatoes to this, and this takes about 15 minutes, and it is absolutely delicious. If you have to have a tiny bit of flavor of olive oil, you know what to do? Spritz it on. They have olive oil flavored spray. I'm not kidding you, and it's very good. But then you're not cooking in oil or fat. So we'll let this cook up, and we are going to cover this, though, our beautiful grain dish, with the bottled thinned out pasta. So let's put some on right here, and we'll put a couple of olives on top because we haven't used very many in our dish. And we'll make it real pretty with some chives here. Isn't that gorgeous? Now let's go over here, because let me show you how to build a meal on another grain, which is rice. Now, rice is so easy if you have a steamer, or you can put it in a pan like this. The way we did this is rice primavera, not pasta primavera, just a few parboiled vegetables, and we've mixed them up on top because we've used no fat, just a little bit of Parmesan that we've grated, couple of olives on top to make it gorgeous. Both of these dishes come from the most desirable part of the food pyramid, the base, and each will provide you with a meal that's so easy, it's almost non-fat, it's hearty, and it's satisfying and simple for the whole family to enjoy.
The next level of the pyramid is made up of vegetables and fruit. You should have 3 to 5 servings of vegetables a day and 2 to 4 servings of fruit. Variety is the key to a healthy diet, because eating a variety of foods will offer you a wide spectrum of vitamins and taste. Some fruits and vegetables have more nutrients than others. Take a look at this iceberg lettuce. Basically, it's just water and fiber. But the spinach, on the other hand, is very high in nutrients. In this case, the dark color is the tip-off. It has beta-carotene, iron, and other nutrients. But some pale vegetables are also quite nutritious. Try this cauliflower. It is known as a cruciferous vegetable, one of the ones which has been linked with an anti-cancer agent. Now, nutritionists say you should choose fruits and vegetables over other food because they are nutrient efficient. They have no cholesterol and are low in fat, also low in calories and sodium, but high in fiber and other helpful nutrients. Then we have apples, which are very good for fiber as well. Some oranges, everybody knows that's vitamin C. And some of this stuff, broccoli, which is great for anti-cancer effects as well. Now, you may have seen some of the new stuff coming out. Here's an example called Broccoflower. This is a mixture of broccoli and cauliflower, but has recently become available. It tastes like both of these two, but it has twice as much vitamin C and folic acid as either of the vegetables. When cooking vegetables and preparing fruits, Lynn will show us some of her tips for getting the most nutritional value.
Fruits and vegetables are not only beautiful, but they taste great, and they're so good for you. Now, what you see in front of me looks like a rainbow, and it is. It's filled with a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. Let's look at some especially good ones. And that's what you want to do with your menu plan. Put a wide variety of these wonderful fruits and vegetables in it. Let's look at these. These are the green ones, asparagus, bell peppers. Usually, the darker the green, the more beta-carotene, and that's what you want. Let's go over to white. You don't think of white as being a color that would remind you of vegetables, but it is. Garlic, onions, cauliflower, parsnips and leeks. We don't have a lot of that in our menu plan, and they're so good. They're like an onion. Over here, yellow bananas with potassium. You can have yellow bell peppers, yellow squash, and of course, yellow grapefruit, where there's lots of vitamin C. Over here, orange. We have some orange carrots, and we have other orange fruits and vegetables, of course, red, lots of red ones, and lots of other colors like purple, even black, like black beans and black grapes. Now, the most important part, you bought these. How do we cook them? Remember, we want to retain the beautiful color of the fruits and vegetables that we chose in the supermarket. So this is a little steamer basket. We want to keep in all those nutrients and keep that fiber. Cook them so they're kind of crisp. Now, put about 1 inch or 2 of water in here so it doesn't touch the bottom of the basket. You can put your broccoli in here, and you can cook more than one at a time if you want. I'm going to put some carrots in with my broccoli, and I'm going to cook this maybe 5 or 6 minutes. Remember what we used to do? We used to cook it forever. Asparagus, you don't need a fancy steamer really for any of it. There's about 1/2 inch of water in there. Put a lid on it, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Wonderful. Now look at this. This is our plate. Look how pretty it is. This is what you want to do to try to maintain the crispness and the taste. And we could even add a few tomatoes here and maybe a piece of fish or chicken if you want it, or just go vegetarian. And the taste will be delicious.
The next tier is narrowed. That's because it's made up of less desirable foods, such as the milk, yogurt, and cheese group, and another group, high-protein foods composed of meat, poultry, fish, dry beans, eggs, and nuts. You should have 2 to 3 servings of each of these groups. One thing people tend to forget is they can eat vegetables raw, and they're just great. Like this broccoli. Pretty good. So here we are at the meat and poultry counter of the supermarket. Now I'd like to show you how to pick meats and poultry with less fat. According to many health experts, reducing dietary fat is the single most important dietary change most people can make. Fats in foods are mixtures of 3 types of fatty acids: saturated, monosaturated, and polyunsaturated. Saturated is the worst type of fat because it raises the blood cholesterol. The American Heart Association recommends that you limit fat to 30% of the total calories of your diet, which includes 10% or less from saturated fat. The perfect place to start cutting the fat is right here at the meat counter. Here are some tips. Before buying your meat, make sure as much of the fat has been removed as possible. Like in these 2 cuts we've taken the wrapping off of to show you. The one on this side has all the fat left on it. Look how much that's going to amount to. On this side is the one you want to shoot for, the one with no fat on it. Turn it around, look at it real carefully, make sure it looks a lot like this. Now, here are some tips for buying poultry. If you buy it already skinned in the package, it may have lost its moisture and taste. So instead, try buying it with the skin on. When you bring the poultry home, take the skin off. Deskinning is important because the skin is where the fat lodges.
Now that you bought meat and cut out as much fat as you possibly could, I'd like to show you some cooking techniques that can help you get out even more fat. Now let's cook some deskinned, defatted chicken that you just bought in the supermarket. Isn't it beautiful this way? And it is delicious and juicy. Now when you're cooking poultry without the skin, put some rosemary, maybe 2 or 3 sprigs of rosemary, and a sprig or 2 of thyme in it, just like this. And then shake on some spices that you particularly like. Any mixture will do, even Cajun if you've got a tooth for really spicy food, and I like really spicy food. And then you put this chicken in a cooking bag like this, whether you're microwaving it or putting it in the oven. And I put it on an inverted dish. You can see it right here, a pie plate. And we'll cover it like so. Now, if you think this might be airtight, snip a little hole in the top to make sure that the air can get through. Now, prepared this way versus the old way, with the skin and the fat, you may be cutting up to 60% of the fat, and it is so good and so tender. And here's what it looks like when it's finished. It is absolutely delicious looking, hot or cold. Now, let's take a look at Top Ground Round you just bought in the supermarket without hardly any fat. You know how you get it, at least less than 4% fat. Now, I'm going to make a true American favorite, meatloaf. Now to meatloaf, let's add some onions. This is 1 pound of top round with all the fat cut off. And we put in a cup of onions, and we'll put in a 1/2 cup of celery and about a 1/2 cup of carrots. And the carrots add a little bit of sweetness, and we'll mix that all up really nicely. And for flavor, instead of salt, let's use a little bit of steak sauce. We could also use Worcestershire if we wanted to, and that adds our wonderful flavor. And have you seen these new pans where you can cook a meatloaf and you don't have to have, see, the fat that you're cooking in, because it has holes in it. It's a double pan and it's non-stick to boot. Isn't that terrific? But if you don't have that or you can't afford that, there's an easy way to do it. How about this? Take some of your kids' marbles, put it in a loaf pan, and put some foil in it, like so, and just poke some holes in the bottom so all the fat drips out. And then we'll put our meatloaf right into that pan. And I'll show you how this works. And then you cook it in your oven for 1 hour, 350 degrees. And again, you put the ketchup on top, just like you're used to doing. And if you don't like ketchup, there are other things you can put on top. And you know what else you could put in this if you liked? Some mustard. And this is about 1/4 cup all told. Again, 350 degrees for about an hour, and it's absolutely delicious. And all of that fat drips out. Now, by buying and cooking the meat just as we have demonstrated, you can cut up to 80% of the fat out. And let me show you what it looks like when it's all finished. As you can see, we put a couple of very thin slices, small slices of meatloaf here. Not a lot, it's not overpowering the plate. But we have a healthy serving of string beans and potatoes. And even the mashed potatoes have very little fat in them. We've used some skim milk to thin them out, but if you're not going to use any gravy, you could use maybe a 1/2 teaspoon of butter or margarine. That would be fine. But in a moment, I'll show you how to make non-fat gravy.
Changing your portion size to de-emphasize meat, poultry, and fish in favor of fruit, vegetables, and grains makes a lot of sense because they are lower in calories and higher in nutrients. Experts suggest that a satisfactory serving size is about the size of a deck of cards or the palm of your hand. Now, as you may have noticed, we're in the dairy section. Dairy products are less desirable on the food pyramid because many of them are high in cholesterol and saturated fat, and yet they're very important sources of calcium in our diet. So you want to pick the ones that are low fat or no fat when you put them into your diet. The USDA says that you should have between 2 and 3 of these servings every day. So let's look at this. Here are some low-fat products that'll help you keep the cholesterol and fats out of the diet and the calcium in, like yogurt, skim milk, and cottage cheese.
David, don't forget the non-fat sour cream. It's probably one of the best tasting non-fat dairy products. It's just delicious. And if you don't like the color of skim milk, which is better for you than 1% or 2% milk, add a packet of non-fat dry milk powder and shake it up. And remember, skim milk has more calcium than the same amount of 1% or 2% milk or whole milk, which is 4% fat, and most of that fat is saturated. And keep the milk really, really cold. It tastes really good that way. We are so lucky that we have products like these available. Now let me show you a few quick and delicious recipes using non-fat dairy products. How about dips? Dips are one of the hardest things to prepare without the old products, but you don't have to use the regular sour cream. Use non-fat. It's so simple and it tastes really good. All right, here's the recipe. 1 cup non-fat sour cream, 1 cup of non-fat yogurt, tofu, or non-fat cottage cheese. Now, if you want the cottage cheese to be really smooth, and this is it right here, non-fat, you can see how moist it looks, just whip it up in a blender. It whips up really, really smooth. What else do we put in our dip? How about some rosemary? We'll put in a tablespoon of rosemary. This is what it looks like. It's so pretty and it smells so good. And of course, chives. A tablespoon of chives, and you can just snip them off like I'm doing here. And some basil, some sweet basil. I hope you're growing that in your garden. And we'll use a tablespoon of that. Then we're going to use a 1/2 of 1 lemon, or a tablespoon if you have a little lemon and you don't want to use quite as much. You can use a whole cup or a half cup, depending on how much you like, of chopped onion. I use a half a cup. And any other vegetable that you would like, such as maybe some chopped carrots, some chopped green, red, or yellow peppers, even some chopped up broccoli. And by the way, when you're using peppers, use the seed. Thumb them off too. It's good fiber and it tastes really, really good. All right. Oh, and you know what else I wanted to tell you? So much better than potato chips are non-fat crackers, pretzels, and mini rice cakes. Don't use the potato chips. These are so much better. Salads can be really healthy, but you can get tricked by the salad dressing, which can be very high in fat. I'm going to make a recipe for you, which is one of my very favorites. It's a Caesar salad. I know what you're saying. It's got eggs in it. Well, you don't have to use shell eggs. You can use the substitute eggs, which are pasteurized. But to tell the truth, I don't even use any eggs at all, not even the substitute. I make it very simply, and it's absolutely delicious this way. Now, normally we would use this, which is romaine, and this has a lot of beta-carotene and a lot of fiber, and it's such a rich, green, beautiful color. That's the normal Caesar salad lettuce. But you can use field greens or what they call mesclun in fancy restaurants, or just a mixture of different kinds of greens. So we start out with these beautiful greens, and perhaps a lot of them. The dressing, very simple. Juice of a lemon. Now, if you want to have 2 lemons in here because you're going to have a lot of people, you can double this recipe very easily and you won't lose any of the quality. But the juice of 1 lemon, we're going to put a lemon and a half because we've got a few more people. And I see I have a seed in there, so we'll take that out. And then we're going to put just a little drop of Worcestershire. Not a lot because it has some salt in it. But for the traditional Caesar taste, you want about 1/4 teaspoon, maybe a half if you have a whole lemon and a half like I do. Now we're just starting with that and anchovies. And you're saying, hey, anchovies have too much salt. Well, we're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to use real anchovies, but this is anchovy paste and just a little squirt of anchovy paste. So you get the taste of it, but you don't have whole anchovies. And then you want to whisk that up to break it up. And of course, garlic. 1 clove of minced garlic gives this the bite that you want it to have. And if you're a big garlic lover, okay, 2 cloves, you can do that too. And we'll mix this all up. Now you're saying, hey, what about the oils? Well, I use a spray, an olive oil spray, because it's so simple and you get a little bit of olive oil on everything. So you end up using about 1/4 teaspoon instead of the whole teaspoon. And some recipes call for 4 and 5 and 6, 7, 8 tablespoons, and you don't need that. So we have our wonderful dressing that we're going to put on our salad, and then what we put on top, of course, is a little bit of Parmesan cheese, only about 1 tablespoon or so. This is shredded. You could use grated if you wanted to. Some wonderful black pepper and some croutons. And this is the most delicious Caesar salad. Have it real cold. And David will now show you the best oils to choose for your salad dressings and some other recipes.
And the final tip of the pyramid, which should be eaten sparingly, is made up of fats, oils, and sweets. There are a lot of oils to choose from. The key is to pick the ones that are low in saturated fats. The lowest are canola and rapeseed oil. Then comes safflower oil. Then corn oil and olive oil are about the same. And finally, peanut oil. Of course, the worst of these oils are the tropical oils like palm oil, because they're the highest in saturated fats. Oh, and don't forget to look for them on packages of snack foods and on sweets.
David, to get rid of oil, you can go even further. You can cut down on how much oil and fat you use in cooking, or eliminate it altogether. All the vegetables you have, you can steam in just about 1/4 inch of water. And to make gravy, there's a real easy way to do this without any fat or oil, and I'll show you just exactly how to do it. This is the juice that was left over from a meatloaf that we made a little bit earlier. We're going to put a little bit in the pan here to start it out, and a little bit in here. And mixed with that, we're going to put some cornstarch and some flour, equal amounts, about 1 tablespoon of cornstarch and a tablespoon of flour. And we've got this broth now nice and warm, and we're going to thicken this up, and then we're going to add some onions to it here, about 1/4 cup, and just let them cook just a tiny, tiny bit as we stir this all up really well. And as these start to get translucent, then I'll thicken this, and I'm going to add a little bit more of our broth to it. And did you see what I used right here, this defatting cup? It's absolutely perfect, because you see what happens to the fat? It rises to the top. I'll add a little bit more in here and keep that fat out of there, because we don't want any of the fat to get in there, because we don't have to have any to have really thick gravy. We've got our onions cooking away here, and we'll add this, our mixture. And if you were going to make more of this, you might want to add a can of bouillon and try to get the kind that has no salt in it. Let's turn this flame up a little bit. There we go. And you'll see how this will thicken absolutely perfectly. Now, if you're not sure that you want to use cornstarch, you can also use arrowroot, which is another thickener, a little more expensive. So you might want to go with the cornstarch. And if you don't want to use cornstarch or arrowroot, you can use just plain flour, just like this. It works just as well. But remember, it will lump if you add it to very hot liquids. Now, can you see what's happening here? It's getting so beautiful and thick, and it's absolutely perfect for our onion non-fat gravy. I'm going to put it on our potatoes, and here it is, our absolutely delicious traditional meal of meatloaf, potatoes, and even gravy without any added fat at all.
So that's it. Nothing complicated, no tricks. Just some useful information. And an easy plan for healthy eating, and you're there. A healthful, happier you. Take care of yourself.